But without further ado, I'm going to pass this along to Rick to take over the rest of the presentation. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Cheryl. I appreciate it. We are going to talk about e-commerce and EDI. When I originally scheduled this with Cheryl, we had talked about having it today. Did I ever expect that we were going to have a pandemic that we were going to be dealing with at the same time? That was totally outside my expectations. So we modified the title a little bit and added in there from a COVID-19 perspective. It's really kind of something that has surprised a lot of people, but more importantly, has probably surprised businesses on the whole. Again, as Cheryl said, my name is Rick Sundahl. I have a whole bunch of TLAs, three-letter acronyms behind my name. I spend too much time getting certified. But what I want to say to you is that I've been in this business for 25 plus years, as well as my dad was an auto parts distributor. And so I think I've seen the comings and goings of distribution over the years. And what I really want to try to do today is spin or modify this presentation more from a how do we move forward given the situation we're in, as opposed to a typical where we talk about technology, go through, give demos, that kind of thing. I'm actually going to take a little bit of a risk today. What I'm going to do is not do a PowerPoint presentation for the most part. There's probably, I think, about 5 slides I've got. If you are like I am, where everybody's doing webinars now, everybody's doing presentations over the internet. That's the way of the world for at least the last month. And there are so many webinars that I really appreciate you taking the time, because there's so much noise out there as well, that I wanted to take a little different slant on this. I'm sure you've seen several that are on e-commerce and EDI, and I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of demos. Instead, what I'm going to do is take a chance. I'm going to take a risk and walk through and do a bunch of things that are real-time information that I found on the internet. Most of what I'm going to be doing is showing you things that you can find yourself out on the internet and talk about this as how we move forward given the situation we're in. So I'm going to do an introduction of who Grey Wolf is. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I do want you to know who we are, where we came from, those kinds of things. I'm going to talk about the state of the industry. I want to, and that's part of the reason why I didn't do PowerPoints, is because I'm actually going to be pulling up information that was updated as of today, as of the 28th this morning. Some of this information I'm going to show is going to be updated as of this morning. We're dealing with a completely changing environment that is so new to us that we have to deal with it day in and day out. And those of you that are on the recording, you're probably going to find that some of this information is probably changing as of the time you listen to it. So I apologize for that aspect. I then want to talk about a concept called consumption economics that I think really plays into what's happening with this pandemic and everything that's happening going forward. So I want to talk a little bit about that philosophy, and then I'll get into what is e-commerce and EDI and how does it play into the future for what we're trying to do, and why are we even caring about that at this point at the way the economy is going. All right, so with that being said, what I want to do is pop out of this presentation, and I want to pull up, first of all, our website. So who is Grey Wolf? Where do we come from? Why are we there? And you'll find it on our homepage. You'll see a lot of things that I'm going to be talking about today. You'll see that we've been in business since 1992. You can see that we've actually come from a lot of different places over that time. We started out with networking to data warehousing to then getting into EDI and e-commerce. A lot of it's going to be based upon this concept called APIs and web services, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. But the other thing I want to talk about is this consumption-based e-commerce aspect, and what is consumption-based e-commerce in EDI applications. If you look at our history, and I'm not going to go too far into detail on this, but you can see it yourself, you can see we've had a lot of major milestones over time. And a lot of that has happened, over the last 25, 28 years is really since we've been founded. And you can see we've been in the P21 world since 2014. You can see we've been involved with Cheryl and the organization since 2015. We were actually an Epicor Services partner in that same time frame. But we've also been involved with a lot of things, and you'll hear about Partner Connect, and if you'll see here on the date, 1997, we've been doing that. We've been involved in the cloud world since 2001. We've been doing APIs since 2006. So we've been doing this for a long time, and everything we're going to be talking about today is based off of that idea of where are we going with this kind of technology and how do we apply it to the new environment that we're dealing with? And that being said, Cheryl, if you'll do me a favor and go ahead and put the first poll up for me, please.
Absolutely.
And thank you. And what I'd like to find out, at least for those of you that are on the call, I'd like to find out where you are has the pandemic affected your business? And what's really interesting to me, I'm going to talk a little bit about how it's affected some, but I'm going to talk about some war stories as well. We've got customers out there, and one of them happens to be King Wholesale. They're a P21 user, and they signed up with our Partner Connect, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But when they first signed up, they weren't doing much with EDI. And when this whole pandemic came about, it started to have it that the CEO saw as an opportunity, because before the business starts to drop, they want to jump into this and have it that they are ready to start using that EDI solution. And that changed the world. And it looks like, Cheryl, we do have 100%. Is that correct? Have I answered this already? Wow, that was quick. Quicker than I thought.
So 67%, Rick, said that their business has dropped. 23 said no effect, and 15 said that their business has improved.
That doesn't surprise me. And you can actually close that poll and bring it back to my screen if you would, please. Thank you for doing that. This does not surprise me, and this is something that I wanted to get into as the next step, is to talk about where are we in the state of the economy, in the state of the industry. So let me pull up a few websites here and talk a little bit about it. And I'll talk and refer it back to how you guys have answered. And we've actually got some safety wholesale distributors that are customers of ours, and their business has improved as well. So it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing some uptick in the distribution industry. But before we dig into some of the 50,000 foot level kind of numbers, you may not have seen some of this. The CBO, and let me scroll up here so that you can see where this is coming from. That's the Congressional Budget Office, and this is their current projections, and you can see the date on this is April 24th. So this is fairly current, and I'm not going to get into the words on it, because what those are summaries of this chart is where I want to focus on. And if you look at this chart, some of the things that as a business person you might want to kind of put in the back of your mind. Now, I'm not a full believer of the word expert today. I think there's a bunch of people out there calling themselves experts. They're pontificating and putting all kinds of crystal balls out there, and I don't think anybody has a clue of what's going to happen over the next 12 to 18 months. I think they're guessing, but this is something that's at least coming from the Congressional Budget Office, of things where they're saying, okay, in first quarter of 2020, here's what we're seeing for things like real GDP, and change from the previous quarter, what the annual rate is. And if you can see, the definition of a recession is 2 quarters of real GDP being negative. So they're obviously predicting that we will be in a recession, and it's pretty obvious. Everybody's been saying that. But you can see that 39%, it's going to be pretty hard to not get to a positive aspect in the second quarter of 2020 with real GDP. You can see also the unemployment rates. You can see 3.8 going to 14% unemployment in the second quarter. And as you see here, everybody's talking about the idea that we're going to get back to more of a full employment. I'm not sure that's really going to happen for quite a while. And in fact, they're even predicting by the end, at the top, they put it as a little bit higher number, but they're talking in 2020, we're still going to be in the double-digit unemployment rate. If you look at some of the other things, these are the new results that came out today. And I'm not going to drill into this, and if you want, reach out to me after I give you the information, or reach out to Cheryl, and I can give you this link, because this is not something I've got on a PowerPoint presentation, or you can take it from looking at the screen right now. But these are a bunch of census indicators, and the reason why this is really kind of interesting is if you look at this advanced monthly wholesale inventories, and you look over here, this column is what we're looking at. These are the latest updates as of the date, and this was released on April 28th is what that's saying here. This was on April 28th. These are all done today. These all came about, the top 5. But if you look at the monthly wholesale inventories, they're only down 1%. Whereas if you compare that to the rental rates that, the first quarter, I don't want to trust that one. But if we look at the monthly inventory new residential sales. This is probably the one that if you're in the construction or building materials kind of a distributor, you're looking at a negative 15% new residential sales for the month of March. New residential construction, negative 22%. The advanced report on manufacturing, negative 14%. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you haven't heard. All the news is talking about this over and over again. But instead of looking at the news, I wanted to look at actual just pure facts. Nobody trying to pontificate. I'm not taking and saying, oh, this is what's going to happen. I'm just giving you the numbers so that you can see what's happening here. This is the one that surprised me the most. And let me scroll up a little bit. This came from the Bureau of Labor Statistics from the United States. And what this is showing is for the one month, employment change by industry with confidence intervals. And if I hover over the wholesale trade, you're going to see that there really wasn't any kind of a change in employment. Same thing if we hover over, I got to move my mouse so I can see it. I want to find the manufacturing. They really didn't change much. Where were the big changes? Leisure and hospitality and in the service providing. That's where a lot of the unemployment's getting hammered. And again, I'm not saying anything you don't know. We're seeing this obviously in the restaurants, the bars, those kinds of things, the airlines. That's the places that are getting hammered with the unemployment. So again, I come back to what you were saying with yours. It's not a surprise that some of you are seeing an uptick or no change. So the numbers are starting to tie out. What's kind of interesting, though, that looks negative, if you're not familiar with Indian River Consulting Group, Michael Marks, I've known Mike for a long time, they've done a poll. Now, keep in mind, this is not statistically solid. I think the number of companies they talk to is like 100 and some odd. I don't see their numbers on here. But you can see the revenue index by week starting in February going through April for the wholesale. They focus purely on wholesale distributors. This is being published by the Modern Distribution Management Organization or magazine that puts out this piece. And they, by the way, also have webinars that you may be going to and seeing Michael Marks talking about this as well, and I've been watching those. But you can see there was a hit through the month of March and April. That, again, is not a surprise. If we look at something, though, from a different perspective, and if you're familiar with Accenture, what they've done is they've talked a little bit about, okay, if we are talking to, and they're talking about high-tech companies, but I want to dovetail this back into what we're talking about as later on today, this triage and prioritize over the next 2 weeks. What are they saying you should be doing? Well, if we look at this, one is create a technology plan to deploy at speed, develop a workforce communication. These are all the things that you're seeing now with Zoom and WebEx and doing webinars, and everybody's starting to have virtual meetings. That's what you do over the 2 weeks. Then they say over the next 2 months, what should you be doing? Well, you need to have some sort of elastic workforce, execute ways of collaborating all levels of the company, making sure that you have longer-term supply and demand stability. You know, if you are getting products from China and trying to get products that way, it's not working real well. So you're going to have to look at other maybe sources for your supplies. They've been talking about that from a food perspective. They've been throwing away a whole bunch of food and beef. That's all happening for the next 2 months. But here's where I want to focus. Let's look at the long-term picture. Why are we worried about all this? Well, from a long-term perspective, the next 6 months, what is Accenture trying to say? They're saying diversify your supply chain to mitigate dependencies on specific countries, like I was just saying about China. Look at digital supply chain smart manufacturing capabilities. Enable more of a direct-to-consumer business model. That's where we're going to talk about e-commerce. That's where we're going to talk about EDI. How do you get this relationship building with your customers through those types of technologies? Now, that being all said, this is kind of the state of the industry. Well, let's talk a little bit, and we can come back to that if we end up with some questions, but let's talk a little bit about next this concept of called consumption economics. And that's a book out. It was written in 2011, and I'm looking at it on my Kindle reader. I actually have Kindle is how I get most of it. I purchased the book, obviously. You can see the copyright was in 2011. And what its concept is, and this is really kind of important to what we're talking about, is if the world's going the direction we're going, and if I put myself in your shoes, what should I be doing from a technology perspective, whether it be working with Epicor, putting in new technologies like eCommerce and EDI, if I'm looking at warehouse management systems, if I'm looking at a shipping, parcel management kinds of systems. In the past, the way the technology used to be was off of what you see figure 2.1 in this consumption economics model that they're talking about is not the CapEx technology purchase pattern. And you may have seen this. What they talk about, and I hope you can see this slide or the screen well enough, that if you go through the phases of the adoption of a technology purchase pattern, you spend, in their argument here, is you spend $1 million on the product. Let's take Epicor and buying P21 for argument's sake. They're going to say you're going to spend $1 million with Epicor. You're going to spend another $200,000 in professional services, and you buy, the term is buy it at the front of it. And then it gets thrown over the wall to you to have you adopt it. And if all of a sudden the adoption rate at the end of that 2-year cycle, 2 to 4 year cycle, ends up being that there is no adoption of all the pieces and parts of that software, you've still spent that $1.2 million, even though over, if you do have it adopted correctly with annual license fees and maintenance and everything else, that you probably spent $2 million over that 2 to 4 year period of time. That's the CapEx model. The OpEx model, which is what consumption economics is based off of, is this figure 2.2, where instead of doing the model where you're paying up everything up front, you spend $0 for the product. You're going to spend a couple $100,000 for professional services at the time you sign for it. And as time goes on, as you end up using the software, as you end up having some sort of consumption of that software over that same 2 to 4 year period of time, you're still probably going to spend $2 million. But what this does is this becomes a partnership between you and the technology company. Now, why am I talking about this? The reason why I'm really pushing this is because we first of all bought into it. And why did we buy into it? Is the reason why we bought into it is because it's a partnership now. It's a win-win situation that what you should not be paying us and that the adoption responsibility is completely on the part of the end user. The adoption responsibility should also be in the software developer side. So if you buy into the consumption, and by the way, I recommend you reading the book. Read into it, see what you think. Now keep in mind it's designed for talking to software developers why they should be going down this path, but you could look at it as an end user perspective as well. Now that being said, I am going to pop back over to my PowerPoint presentation, and I want to talk a little bit about now what is it we call e-commerce and EDI. Now, this diagram it's a subset of what we have on all of our marketing materials and everything when we go to, say, for example, Connects, and we have it on the backdrop. The argument on this one is that what you're seeing here is all the red bodies are the human touch points. There are two pieces to this puzzle. You have got e-commerce, of which our solution is Altitude, it's a registered trademark, and then you've got EDI, of which we've got a registered trademark called Partner Connect. And I want to be clear on this part because we've actually had to go to Epicor and tell them to stop. Their trading Partner Connect is actually in breach of our trademark name, so that's why you start hearing the word TPC. So Partner Connect is not trading Partner Connect from Epicor. Partner Connect is our solution from Grey Wolf. But the difference between EDI and e-commerce, and quite honestly, I have struggled with the definitions on this because quite honestly, both of them are e-commerce, but for our arguments and our discussion today, I'm going to talk about them as two different entities and use those as the distinctions for the discussion. That EDI is going to be when a system to a system is talking. It's lights out. So if I look at the human intervention, this may be a customer or vendor that is actually going to be keying something into, say, SAP or into Microsoft Dynamics or into QuickBooks, or name the ERP solution, or your vendors are doing that. And then the system that they have it in is actually going to transfer the data over to your Prophet 21. This is you. This is your environment. This is your Prophet 21. These are your end users working in Prophet 21. So as you can see, that's a system-to-system integration lights out. That's where Partner Connect, or what we call EDI, is dealing with. EDI is not just ANSI X12 if you think that way. And quite honestly, Everybody that talks about EDI, I've seen webinars, I've seen discussions, I've seen white papers. Everybody makes a big deal about EDI. It is the simplest thing since sliced bread. The hard part's not the technology. The hard part's the people aspect, and that's what we've been doing since 1997. But that's what we've got from a Partner Connect perspective. And then if we talk about down here the e-commerce, this is where we're powered based on Magento. You've probably heard of Magento, but there's a lot of e-commerce solutions out there. Ours happens to be taking Magento, extending it for the P21 world where your customers or potentially your employees then are interfacing with that world that then talks to P21 just like an end user comes into P21. And all of this is based off of this integration through a concept called web services or APIs. I'm not going to get real propeller head on that right now. But the idea is that's the key. It is not a scheduled importer. It's not a flat file importer. It's not a store and forward. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the concept when we get into the next poll about this thing that we found of where near real time is not real time. And that being said, right now, Cheryl, if you'd do me a favor and do the next poll for me, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So as she's putting that poll up, one of the things, and what I'm asking you is, where are you in your journey? Have you got EDI? Have you got e-commerce? Have you got all those pieces? And I see that we've got all the results, but before I jump to that, I want to go here. Yeah, I want to bring this slide over, and I want to show you this white paper that we wrote and talk a little bit about a war story. That near real time is not real time. And this example, and you can read the details of it, but this actually happened to my girlfriend and me, where we were looking for a smartphone, we couldn't get it, and they told us at Best Buy that the one we were at, they said, oh, it's at another store, so we drove for 20 minutes, went over to go get it. When we showed up, they said, oh, no, we're out of stock. We've been out of stock for the last hour, and that the website's not real time, it's near real time. And they almost lost a customer. They were able to work it out for us. But the bottom line is you don't want an e-commerce solution that's not real time. You want an e-commerce solution that's going through an API, a web services approach, as opposed to dealing with a store and forward approach. All right, Cheryl, what's the results of our poll?
So Rick, 44% have both e-commerce and EDI. 6% do EDI but not e-commerce. 19% do e-commerce but not EDI, and 35% do neither.
Interesting. Okay. Not quite what I expected, and you guys can see the results as she just put it on the screen. Not exactly. I did expect the first one, that you both have some sort of a solution, and you're probably looking to see, okay, what other options are out there. But I didn't expect the large number of not doing either. So I like to hear that because obviously that gives us an opportunity. And where I'm going to go with this, I'm going to talk to you guys the most on this, because what we're going to talk about now is why do we want to even get involved in this? I'm going to show some slides on this, and I'll come back to this slide again here in a minute, but let me bring up, let's jump back over to this concept of let's focus purely on the e-commerce side, the web storefront, where you've got the end users, your customers, maybe employees coming into it. And who's the major player in that world? It's our big nemesis called Amazon. I want to talk a lot about Amazon, quite honestly. I want to talk about it from both perspectives and tell you what our experiences have been in the Amazon world. Is Amazon going to be the #1 industrial distributor in the United States? And this didn't come from just anybody. This came from MDM. And they talked about it. And I'm going to scroll down here where it starts talking about the share of products within its growth projections, that they will be the #1 industrial distributor by sales volume in 2021. Now, if you're an industrial distributor, you should be scared. More importantly, if you're not an industrial distributor, do you really think that you're safe? Because quite honestly, Amazon their stock is going up. They're the big bad wolf right now, because what they're doing is they're taking so many things that they're running with, and their stock is growing, and they're just doing gangbusters right now. And I am personally, I'll be totally full disclosure right now, I've gotten to be a huge negative fan of Amazon because of articles like this one. This came from the Wall Street Journal. Amazon scooping up data from its own sellers to launch competing products. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit here, and you can read it here. It says, a car trunk organizers made by Fordham sits atop a competing product developed by Amazon. What is Amazon doing? They're trying to be all things to all people. They're going to do the e-commerce. They're going to start providing products. And let me tell you a little war story about what happened. We are dealing with another P21 user out of Arizona, and we were working with the Amazon APIs. And what we were trying to do, and this is on the e-commerce, on the EDI side, and what we were dealing with on that is we wanted to be able to place products onto the Amazon website to be sold by Amazon. Makes sense, right? Let's go ahead and do that. Well, those APIs worked really well. That we created an EDI document, it's what they call product activity document. I'm not going to get into numbers on EDI. I don't want to talk about that too much. A product activity so that we could then post products that came from P21 or from a catalog. We posted it up to Amazon so it could be sold. And then what would happen is if it was sold at Amazon, those orders come back and they automatically go into P21. Sounds like a great idea. What we found out now is that the company we were working with on this, they already had a relationship with the Amazon APIs, and there's two worlds out there. There's called Fulfilled by Amazon, or FBA, or Fulfilled by Merchant, or FBM. In the FBA, they get to keep all the information on who the customer is. They get to keep what they call PII, which is personal identification information. They keep that information. They know who your customers are, and they can potentially start selling to them directly. There's no non-compete from that world, and they can start selling to them because they keep it. So when it's fulfilled by Amazon, they'll deliver it to them, but who's to say they're not going to start selling products to them directly or start marketing to them directly? And then on top of that, the fulfilled by merchant information in the API, I sent, I think, 30 emails to Amazon trying to get this question answered. If you're not going to give us PII, how are we going to be able to ship product to a customer if we don't know their name and ship to address? Because you need that information to be able to ship it. Not once did they ever answer it. Now, luckily, with this customer that we've got that we integrated with Amazon, they were grandfathered into getting that information. But since September of 2019, Amazon is no longer giving PII information to their what they call partners or third-party vendors, which you're seeing here that they're taking that information. So as you can see, I'm not a fan of Amazon. I'm not sure you want to play, and they're kind of the ones that you're going to be competing with. If we look at another article here from Fastenal, if you're not familiar with them, they're just obviously a fastener company. And if you look at the interesting piece here, I see e-commerce being 60, 70, and 80% of our business. Well, that's not a surprise. And if I look at those, like I said, I'm going to target this to those guys that don't have either EDI or e-commerce. This is going to be something that you need to start dipping your toe into. Let's look at the next one. Now let's start dovetailing into what's happening today. What impact do you expect the pandemic to have on your e-commerce business? And you can see a little bit down, doesn't surprise me, but this is obviously retailers, so there's going to be some differences between retailers and distributors, but everything's going up because the COVID-19 or the pandemic is actually increasing the need to have some sort of a presence out there. And if you look down a little bit further, you see some nice pictures of empty shelves, and you can see the 6 steps that they're saying to protect your online business during this pandemic. 1, be tactful and transparent. If you look at ours, and I agree with this because Grey Wolf, if you want any of the pricing we're talking about, you're going to see all that on our website. Don't over-communicate. Don't send out mass emails all the time. That doesn't make sense. Diversify your supply chain. Focus on, this one's probably not quite as much, but it maybe makes sense that it's not just gift cards, but maybe you can start getting into classes and tutorials and ebooks. These are some of the things that you may want to look at for your website, which, oh, by the way, we support. Keep advertising. Get social connected with your consumers. If we look at the e-commerce shipments in 2020, They're going to outpace 2019 most weeks. So we're starting to see the shipments, and where did this come from? Same type of article, but this is in March and April of this year. E-commerce shipments are increasing 47%. The downside is that there's going to be some sort of delay, and this article came out yesterday. This is a fairly new article. So what have we got as a solution for that? We've got this product called Altitude. It's based on Magento. I'm not going to do demos. That's not the originally I was going to. That's what this webinar is going to be. But I wanted to talk about how do we deal with this pandemic. Well, one of the things everybody says is, why don't I go with Magento, Commerce versus Altitude, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of things. Well, a lot of these companies haven't integrated with P21, and the way we've done that is through a set of APIs, and we're running it up and integrating. And the other piece is, if you look at the pricing model, now I'm going to come back to consumption economics on this e-commerce part. If you were to pay us, and I'm not going to get into details, everything's on our website, but you pay us an installation fee, or an activation fee, $400 for the web services, $500 per year for our web service integration with P21. That gets you integrated with P21, so it's real-time integration. You pay a $400 activation fee for Altitude, and you'll pay $100 a month for orders, and we then charge you based off of transactions, whether it's orders or payments. So, for example, if you have customers that come in and make payments to open invoices that they placed at the counter or through a phone call, they can do that. They can come to your website and start and take a credit card and apply it to it. Those transactions. You start paying for transactions. But those transaction dollars are going to be in the pennies, not dollars per transaction. Compare that to what Magento Commerce is charging. They're doing the same concept, but if you go $0 to $1 million in revenue, they're going to charge you $22,000 per year for that edition. Unless you go to the cloud edition, now it's $40,000 per year. And you can get this information all on the internet, but basically what we're saying to you is we're going to go through this consumption economics that you're going to spend less than $2,000, let's say, plus maybe some work that we're going to have some consulting services, like we talked about in that other slide. You're going to have some consulting services, but now you're going to pay for the transactions as they go. I challenge you, with everybody that says they've got a P21 integration, I challenge you to look at them, see what kind of integration they have, make sure it's not flat files, it's not using the scheduled importer, it's not doing near real time so that you don't fall into that trap, and challenge them to see what their pricing model is, to see if it's consumption based or if it's also based off of this CapEx model approach. And just so that we have to at least show something sexy, this is a customer that's running it. They're running Altitude. They've got all kinds of different nice little screens, pictures, graphics. I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of detail on that because they all start to look the same. Now we've got to put your style into it. And if you get into that consumption-based model, this is where you spend the money, is on a custom approach for you, as opposed to something that's off the shelf that everybody thinks that what they're doing is just right for you. All right, that's the e-commerce side. Now let's talk a little bit about the EDI side. This is not the sexy stuff. This is the boring stuff. Everybody says, "Oh, I really don't want to do this stuff." Okay, that's not the section I want. Sorry for that. Bear with me here. I want to go to this one. And let's bring it over. So there is a study that's been done. You can spend $4,000 or whatever it is over here to get it, but I wanted to only talk about what this first page says. According to the study, and EDI, everybody's been talking about EDI for decades. It's been around since the 50s, and it's not the sexy stuff. But I challenge you to talk to other people to see what they're doing differently. And this is something that we actually cut our teeth on early in the late 1990s that we've been doing for a long time. And you can see here, it's going to see a 10% compounded annual growth rate where the market's going to reach $1.3 trillion by the year 2024. So it's not like EDI is going away. It's maybe what it's doing, how it's doing it. And what you're going to start to see is everybody that's doing the flat file approach, which is the way it's been done forever, using ANSI X12, and you may hear this XML and CXML and all these other things. It's all flat file. There's an interesting study that was done that's on Select Hub, and I'll go up to the top so you can see it here. talks about EDI software trends, and it talks about, this is current, so this I don't have the date on it per se, but you can see it's saying through 2020. And you go down here, and it talks about the future of EDI headed. And this first one here says 63% are based off of web services and APIs. Now, what does that mean, web services? That means I'm working like a headless user, talking real time to P21. That's the part that I was talking about that says it's a $400 activation fee and $500 a year. Now, if we pop over real quick to our website and we go into the web services and then look at Prophet 21, you'll see a full listing of everything that we've done, and hopefully they're named intuitively enough for you that you can see what's going on. So for example, I can say, give me a sales or sales customer select. That's going to go look up a customer in P21, or maybe sales customer list. That's going to look up a listing of customers in P21, doing it real time. Or maybe I want to do a sales order insert or update, and it's going to be where I pass parameters to it, and when it comes back, it's going to actually insert the order directly into it. We use this technology to actually make that integration happen for Partner Connect, as opposed to going through the scheduled importer. Now, there's a lot of things that we have as a philosophy on this, and the biggest philosophy we have on it is that it should be lights out and you handle by exception. I'm going to show you some of that here in a minute, but before I get to that, I want you to look, this is on our website, the pricing model that we have. We are based on a consumption model. If you look at our model, we have the lowest price per document. If you get up into tens of thousands of documents, you're going to pay less than 2 cents per document. This is not kilocharacters, so for those of you that are running the EDI stuff already, you should be familiar with it. This is not per kilocharacter, this is per document. And you're going to see that you can actually pay for 100 documents. Your entry is $60 per month for up to 100 documents. That's your minimum. Whereas with our competitors, you can see that they're actually substantially more expensive. And what are some of the things that you get with this? Well, if you've ever looked at a document tracker, if you've been to Domino's, you will have seen that you can go and look at where the status is on one of your orders. Well, one of the things we're going to do, actually, let me go look at a different way. I went to the wrong place. Look at a transaction resubmit. And I'm going to, you wouldn't see this because you're not going to see it for all our customers. I'm in as an administrator, but I'm going to go look for a PO outbound, and I can search and see all the purchase order outbounds that have been processed for my company, and I can click on sorting. So I can click on the sorting, the enter date, and I have it reverse sort. And as I sort it, I can then actually pick an order and work off of it and say, okay, let's take this order number and copy it. And now I go back over to that document tracker, and I say, I want to, for TechLine, go look up an order, and I can see where the status of that order is, that the purchase order has been sent, and I can see this is a vendor, so I've sent the purchase order out to Hubble. I sent it on this date, and it's been acknowledged, and if I want to drill down into it, I can drill down in that same place I just was a minute ago. It shows me the line items. I can edit that information. I can resubmit. All the things that are being done for that exception-based handling. I don't want to get into a lot of details, but that's really what we're trying to accomplish with the simplicity of Partner Connect, is to make it so that it's system to system as opposed to user to system, which is where Altitude fits. Now, hopefully, I haven't gone too fast that I've totally thrown you off, but now you hopefully can see where this all comes into play, including if we get into the Partner Connect, we get into marketplaces. I was talking about the Amazon Marketplace or eBay or Shopify, where you can place orders and do those things. Be careful with those marketplaces, but you can also then use that for our EDI solution. So what are some of the takeaways I want you to take away today? From a big picture perspective, the key success factors to get through this pandemic and going forward are going to be prepared for when things start coming back. Start working on that now to be prepared. Don't be in so reactive mode. Start thinking about the future. And as you're thinking about the future, make sure you position yourself to be flexible and adaptable. That's where I come to that consumption-based economics, where the idea is You want to be flexible. On our world, if all of a sudden you want to go away and you want to go to somebody else, you just tell us and we cancel. There's no long-term contracts. It gives you the flexibility and you can adapt to changes as they come up. If we look at Partner Connect, it's proven and reliable architecture. It's using API integration, not scheduled importer. It's consumption-based. It's fully extensible. We've got this ability to have it where you can take a mother's maiden name and put it on an order header if you wanted to. And if you look at Altitude's takeaways, proven and reliable architectures based on Magento, and we can get into a whole bunch of where Magento comes from, but it's taking it a whole lot further with the idea of what we're doing with web services. It's real-time, not near real-time, consumption-based, and fully extensible with the Magento extensions and the Magento marketplace that you can add a whole bunch of things outside of our world that we can do with that. I wanted to leave enough time for questions. So Cheryl, I hope I haven't talked too fast. I told you when we started, everybody says I talk way too fast. But hopefully people will ask some questions either today or offline, either through you or through this contact information.
Well, right now we don't have any questions, but you did go really fast. And you're right, we talked about that at the beginning, but if you slowed down, I don't think you would have got through all of that. So
yeah, it would be tough. And I've only done the tip of the iceberg, and so it's hopefully just thought-provoking for people to look at this. I'm an optimist. I think we're going to get through this a lot faster than what the media is saying. So I want people, prospects, customers, everybody to start thinking about being prepared for it now as opposed to waiting, because you should be ready now.
So we did have one question here, Rick, and this is, could you talk a little bit more about how you help with user adoption?
Great question. Let me give you a couple examples. Let's talk about on the EDI side. That's the easiest. So when you sign up with us, you're going to pay a setup fee, and that's a flat fee based upon a standard implementation. There may be some custom fees and that kind of stuff, but I won't get into that right now. But what you're going to do is when you get a trading partner you want to work with, whether it be a customer, vendor, or say a marketplace, we're going to get a phone number from you and a name, and we're going to work with them, and we're not going to be able to answer the questions that are ERP specific. We're going to lean on you for that. But you don't have to worry about talking the EDI jargon. We're going to help the adoption and get that document up and running and going, because it's in our best interest to do that, because we're going to get those transactions coming through so we get paid. In addition to that, you're going to want that to happen because now you got a good relationship with that trading partner. So it's a win-win-win situation for everybody on the EDI side. If we look at the e-commerce side, what we can do is we can start working with you on maybe finding extensions. We do have developers on staff that we can do. We've done, for example, a lot of customization. That website I showed you was a partnership where we were helping them with some custom things that they wanted on their website that weren't available in Standard Magento, nor were we going to do it for everybody because it was very unique to them. So we can actually help with creating an environment, even consult with how do you want to do this. Where we really don't play nice or can't really do much because it's out of our control, and we can work with you on this, is getting the content. And I have heard this over and over and over again about the idea of how do you get product content, the images, and all those kinds of things for the website. We can help work with you on that. We can work with, say, affiliated distributors have some information. IDEA has some information. The manufacturers have it. The nice part about it is we do have an Altitude uploader that allows you to bring images in a batch format so that you're not having to do it one at a time. So hopefully the maintenance of this helps the adoption because you're able to get to the marketplace a lot faster with the content. That's the key success factor to the e-commerce side, is getting the content accurate. Hopefully that answered the question, maybe even triggered some more. If it did, ask some more.
It looks like it did answer the question, so that's awesome. But we don't have any questions.
Okay.
Oh, images for e-commerce.
Yeah. Let me just kind of jump into that with a quick little demo on that real quick, since we've got some time and there aren't questions. I'm going to go into my account, and sorry, I don't want to go to my account. I want to go to marketing. let's see here, product altitude demo. Let's go to the P21 admin. If I can, I'm doing this on the fly, so hopefully it doesn't kill me by doing that. I didn't practice this demo beforehand. But I'm going to log in so that you can see what the admin tool looks like. And then under there, you're going to see under here, I don't think we have it on this one. Let me go to, it's running slow. Let me pull to a different one. Bear with me. I'm going to go to a different demo site. And what we've got when we do this is we are able to allow it, if you have a zip file with all your images, and if you put the image file name .jpeg, .png, .gif, whatever, you put the file name in it as the SKU, and then you will drag and drop under the uploader. You're going to then drag and drop that information to this choose a file, and you'll say file import. And when you import that file, which is a zip file of all the different images that are related to that product, or maybe multiple, so you may have 123.jpg, 123 underscore 1, underscore 2, underscore 3, so forth, for all the different versions of different views of that product. You put in that zip file, you drag it just to the screen, put it in there. It will then align all those images into the products so that now you can actually have it in the database of what those images look like so that you can maintain it in a bulk format, easy to use, including dealing with the appropriate sizing of those JPEGs as it brings it into altitude. So hopefully that's what they're looking for in answering their question.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. Yes, no, that was perfectly exactly what they were looking for. Thank you.
Good deal.
Good. So we don't have any other questions, and Rick's contact information is up on the screen. I highly recommend that you reach out to him now. I know Connect feels like it's just around the corner, but you don't want to wait till Connect. Still a great time to talk with him, just he is usually hopping busy at the conference. So better to chat with him now, set up a one-on-one conversation. That's usually the best next step. The challenge with these webinars, of course, is that Rick is trying to present a lot of material to a generic audience because he doesn't know who's in the room and their experiences. So definitely set up that one-on-one where you can really drill down to your concerns. He's a great resource, as you can see, obviously EDI, but just business in general. So just even like we chat all the time. It's just good to catch up and kind of chat through the new, you and I, we're on the webinar like 20 minutes early today just to catch up. So take the time to connect with him. You'll enjoy the time, you'll learn a lot, and you'll walk away feeling a lot more informed. So like I said, don't wait till Connect, reach out now. If you don't get a chance to jot down his contact information, please reach out to me directly. Everyone knows how to get a hold of me, and I'm more than happy to introduce you and pass this information along to you as well. But Rick, I think I'll give everyone a few more minutes back to their day. We are all just so busy right now trying to manage new responsibilities, possibly from home. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. If you need anything, you know where to find me, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Cheryl. Appreciate it.